president of DecisionPoint.com. And I'm here to talk to you about the price momentum oscillator, which is our kind of our version of the MACD that we came up with. And we think that it works better, but that's our opinion. And so I wanted to explain to you how it works and some of the things I do with it. And then at the very end, depending on how much time I have, but I think I'm going to have plenty, I'm going to run a scan using my PMO through stock charts, and we'll see what kind of stocks come up, and we'll do a live analysis of those charts. I have 21 scan results. I'm not going to go through 21 charts from that scan results from them, but I will give you kind of a brush across them to see how you find the best setups on those charts. So you can get the scans and the scan results. And I actually have a service where you can get the scan results from my scans that I do. And then you can go through them yourself, or you can subscribe to my DP Diamonds and I will do the work for you and pick out the 10 best stocks and ETFs per week and let you know what the stop levels should be, what your targets should be. And so it gives you a little bit more insight. But the scan alert service is there for the do-it-yourselfer. If you want to just see all the results and figure out what you like best, you can do it that way. I'll talk a little more about that at the end. So about me, I have a bachelor's in mathematics from USC, fight on. My master's of science in information resource management is from the Air Force Institute of Technology. I was in the Air Force for about 8 years. And I've been studying the market for well over 30 years, and it's given me quite the insight onto what to look for on charts. And, you know, after you look at so many charts, you really do start to get a little better understanding of the indicators and what you need to look for as far as price action. All right, there we go. And DecisionPoint.com, and again, President, Chief Market Analyst there. All right, so what is DecisionPoint.com? We were created, Carl Swenlin, my father, created it in the 1990s. It actually started as an AOL message board, and he moved that into, he had the only technical analysis message board on AOL for a while, and then he opted to move it into his own company, and that's when Decision Point was born. It is an analysis process, Decision Point, so we'll be talking about that analysis process. And we have timing models that we use, and one of the timing models is what I'm going to show you is these PMO scans. We have plenty of market indicators as well that we've developed over the years. And we have our Decision Point blogs and the scan alert system, which is available to you on a monthly basis. So I'm mainly a blogger, a newsletter person, and I give you the trend and condition of the market. I keep you informed as to what's going on overall in the market. And then I do that DP Diamonds, like I said, where I select 10 stocks and ETFs for you. And the scan alert system we've talked about a little bit already. So the Decision Point analysis process, you need to keep it simple. That's kind of, we don't overwhelm with indicators, at least in our opinion, especially when I'm doing chart analysis. I like to keep it very simple. I don't want to put too much on my chart. I like to identify the market bias, and this I can come up with by looking at my market indicators. I like to identify the trends, rising, falling, or neutral. This is really critical, and I think some people just don't pay attention to this enough, and that is that you must know the trend and condition of the market in general. It makes all the difference in your trading. If you are trading in a bull market like we have been, you're going to have much more success. Your chances of finding good stocks are a lot higher. And so it's really important to make sure you know what those trends are. If they're rising or falling in the short term, in the intermediate term, it's definitely going to affect your stock selection. You need to identify the conditions, whether the market is overbought or oversold. I would say that right now the market is not as overbought as you might think, just based on the RSI, which is currently not above 70. So as far as the condition of the market, it is getting overbought. In a longer term sense, it is overvalued for certain, but overbought right now, it isn't as overbought as it could be. So once you know all of these, you need to act accordingly. We also do special studies on sentiment, relative strength, and that sort of thing as well. What we're going to talk about today, though, is identifying conditions, overbought and oversold. And that's what we can do with the price momentum oscillator. The timing signals, I'm going to give you the ground rules for this because the PMO is one where we look for those crossovers above or below a signal line. And that will give you your timing signal. That will give you your buy signal or your sell signal. But just because you see it come across on the scan alert system doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a chart that's going to certainly be a winner. You have to look at these charts and you have to determine what's going on, not just that you have a crossover. They're attention flags, the timing signals that you get. They're telling you to go look at the chart. So you need to go look at it. Critical thinking and timing signals, that's how you have success. So you need the timing signals to give you that flag to go look at the chart, but then you have to look at the chart and the price action and look for chart patterns and basing patterns and those kinds of things. And when you combine that with your timing signals, you're definitely going to have some success. One thing to pay attention to is that when you have weekly or monthly signals come through, we'll have a PMO for the weekly chart. We have a PMO for the monthly chart. And if you get those crossovers, you need to wait. If it's a weekly chart, you have to wait till the end of the week for the signal to go final. So you may get the signal during the week, but then it goes away by Friday. Well, then you didn't get the signal because it went final and the signal wasn't there. And similar for a monthly chart, you have to wait till the very last day of the month for those signals to go final, is what I call it. And be sure not to settle. I mean, I think this is something that people, they get in there and they're like, I have to buy a stock, I have to buy a stock. But you know what? You don't have to buy one if the charts are not speaking to you. Those great setups will happen. They're going to be there. Maybe they're not here today, but there's a good chance they'll be there tomorrow. You just have to exercise some patience. So let's identify the condition, and we're going to do that using my price momentum oscillator. But let me tell you about the PMO before we go look at the charts. It's a rate of change ratio. So it is a momentum indicator, which are rate of change ratios. But we do use a ratio, and so that does normalize the indicator. And therefore, you can use it for historical comparisons. I'll show you an example of the MACD, and you can't really use it for historical comparisons because the chart itself, you'll see the indicator starts to flatten out. You can't see what's going on with it. Whereas with the PMO, you definitely can. One of the other things that you can do with the PMO is relative strength comparisons. And you can't do this with the MACD. You can look at a PMO value and compare it to the PMO value of another index, stock, or ETF, and it'll tell you which one is stronger than the other, just the fact that it has a higher PMO reading than the other one. So that gives you that relative strength analysis that you can use, and I'll show you how to use when we run these scans. So it is similar to the MACD in behavior, but it has, you're looking for divergences, you're looking at the center line or the zero line, And of course, it measures momentum. It's different than the MACD in construction. The MACD is basically the difference between two EMAs, and the PMO, the MACD is also unbounded, where the PMO is somewhat bounded, I would say. You can't really do overbought or oversold analysis with the MACD because it's unbounded. So I don't use it for those types of analysis. And you can't use relative strength analysis like you can with the PMO. So I think that that also adds to its strength. And then, like I said, historical values aren't necessarily visible or helpful with the MACD. Here's an example of the PMO versus the MACD on a weekly chart. So like I said, we have a weekly PMO. So you can see we have all kinds of data that tells you when it was overbought or oversold. And you can see all of the movement of the PMO. Whereas with the MACD, you get some good movement in here, and you can see it mimics the PMOs, very similar. But then as you go back into history, the MACD all of a sudden isn't very useful on your weekly chart. This is the actual formula for the PMO. I'm not going to go through it. Honestly, it confuses me when I go through it. But if you want to take a screenshot and learn more about how it is produced, this is here. But I would also say that if you go to stockcharts.com, if you go to their chart school, you can look up the PMO, and its formula is there with some examples. So it helps you with figuring that out. So using the PMO, I look for positive and negative crossover signals. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one, right? I'm looking for reversals in momentum. So I'm looking when the PMO is going to bottom or when the PMO is topping. That gives you some very good information, particularly when you're interested in possibly selling a stock. These momentum reversals are extremely important for you to watch. We can look at the overbought and oversold ranges of the PMO, because each stock, index, and ETF tends to have a PMO range where it is, either +2 to -2, or +1.5 to -1.5, or +4 to -4. I mean, there's a big difference in the ranges for the PMO. So it's a good idea to get a sense of what the range is when you're looking at your stock. The other thing that you can do with the PMO that's really important is you can find pure strength and pure weakness in a particular market move. So this is a very important aspect of the PMO, and I will explain how you can find that pure strength and pure weakness by looking at the PMO. It is a confirmation indicator. So you can confirm price action, you can confirm what's happening with stochastics, you can confirm what's happening with price, obviously, with this indicator. So here is an example of the PMO on a daily chart. The red verticals are when you had a negative crossover, and the blue is when you have the reversal. So at this point, we're looking at PMO tops, which are the blue one, and PMO crossovers, which are the red one. And this shows you how it really does come into play at really good times. So you can see right here, we got the sell signal that came through. Clearly, we had a gap down, but there was a lot more downside to absorb. And that came off of a PMO sell signal that was in overbought territory. So that was a good warning sign that there might be problems with this particular chart. Over here, you can see the PMO is topped. So we haven't actually gotten the price top, but the PMO has topped. So that gives us a sense that we may want to start looking for lower prices. And in fact, we got the negative crossover and lower prices continued. Now you can see on the other side of it, the PMO has bottomed and we have a PMO crossover buy signal that has come in. Notice where the PMO bottomed. We had a little bit of rally here, but it gave you a really good sense that we might have some more action to the upside, which is what we ended up getting out of that signal. And there's the crossover that confirmed what was going on with price and with the bottom in the PMO earlier. So we got confirmation and got the rise out of it. PMO topped back here. We did get a little bit of decline, but the PMO top told us there's probably more downside to absorb. The crossover occurred and confirmed that, and we still got some more downside. And I didn't mark it back here, but you can see the PMO bottomed right there just as price bottomed. So it's a very powerful indicator and one that I use every day. The PMO ranges. So here's an example where you're like, okay, is this overbought or oversold? What is, I'm trying to figure it out. And you can see right here, this PMO top is well below this top here. So it doesn't really look like it's overbought. But if we go and take the chart out a couple of years, about 7 years, it looks like I did on this chart, you can actually see what the range typically is for the PMO. And this is its normal range. So in actuality, that top was overbought. So getting the PMO range is very helpful on that. So finding pure strength using the PMO, how can we find pure strength? Give me a moment here to wet my whistle. All right, well, we look for the PMO being above the zero line on a crossover buy signal. When that occurs, you generally are looking at pure strength on the PMO in your chart. So you want to see that PMO above the zero line if you can get it there. And the best situation is, of course, when it gets a crossover buy signal, and that's pure strength. The PMO being flat above the zero line. Now, that doesn't sound like it would mean strength, right? Because your indicator is flat. But what'll happen with the PMO is that as price starts to move in a steady rising trend, the PMO will start to flatten out because there is no new momentum there. It's the same momentum because you've got the same rising trend, it's moving up steadily, and the PMO will then flatten out because the trend has become steady. So what you do want to see is that PMO get flat above the zero line because that means it's been in a steady rising uptrend and it should see some follow through. As I like to say, winners will generally keep on winning. So you want to find those that are doing well. I am a momentum trader, and so that follows in line with that. The distance from the zero line also determines strength. So you may have that PMO above the zero line, you may have that crossover above the zero line, but if it's just barely above the zero line, you're probably not looking at pure strength. You're looking at some strength, but not necessarily pure strength. So you want to get it above the zero line as far as you can, if possible. So finding pure weakness. The PMO is below the zero line on a crossover sell signal. That's pure weakness. And if the PMO gets flat beneath the zero line, it's the same idea. You have a steady downtrend. The PMO is going to flatten. And because basically you have to think of it like this. The PMO measures like what you're doing with the accelerator on your car. When you push down on the accelerator, that means you're getting that new momentum and that rising price. But then as you steady out your rising trend, your foot basically sits stationary on that accelerator. It's not moving, you're not pulling it off the accelerator, but you're not pushing it down on the accelerator. So you're basically flat. You're in a good cruising speed. And that's what we want to find with the flat PMO above, beneath the zero line in this case. The distance to the zero line also determines how weak your stock is as far as the PMO goes. So let's look at some examples, and we're going to look at a ton of examples because I'm getting through this pretty quickly. So we'll have lots to look at here to give you a really good sense of the PMO and how you can use it. Now, I will say the PMO is available on stockcharts.com for sure. I believe it is also available on many of the other trading platforms. I believe we're on Thinkorswim. But you can look it up, the PMO, and you should be able to add it to your charts. Like I said, for sure, we've been associated with stockcharts.com for years, so all of our indicators are on stockcharts.com. So let's look at a couple of examples here. So we want to talk about that strength, right? New strength, pure weakness, pure strength, and get a sense of how that all works. So here's a chart, and you can see that it has been in a downtrend this whole time. And so now we have to determine when we're getting that new strength. Well, back here, you can see that PMO flattened out beneath the zero line, and that was a sign of pure weakness, which is exactly what was going on here. We got the PMO buy signal, and we did get a little bit of movement out of it, but notice that signal came in well below the zero line. That tells you that you're probably looking at diminishing weakness, like over here. So you have this steady decline. You get the PMO crossover buy signal, but it is well below the zero line. So what we call it is diminishing weakness. It's not necessarily new strength, it's diminishing weakness. And so we still have to be very careful with that particular buy signal. And you can see it didn't really amount to much. We had another one back here. It didn't amount to much. We got one back here, and it was still diminishing weakness at that time because it was still very low below the zero line. But then it started to climb. You started to see margin between it and its signal line, and that was a sign of new strength. You know for sure it's new strength because the PMO did get above the zero line. So that's new strength. That's something you want to be watching for. And you can see the PMO just started to shoot up from there on the gap up that happened. And I don't know what happened to the chart after this, but more than likely, price did continue higher. This is um, a reversal chart. So these reversal patterns, you're getting the price well below the 200-day EMA. Usually the 50 is below the 200, the 20 is below the 50. This is the most negative setup for your EMAs as you can get. And so when you're looking at these reversals, you do need to watch that PMO and make sure that it's not just one of these little hiccups here where you get a little bit of movement and then that's it. You want to keep a close eye on it. And with reversal charts, with reversal patterns, you really want to be in a market where the trend is moving up. You can see right here, we got a silver cross. We call a 20 crossing above the 50 a silver cross. So that was an excellent confirmation on this breakout move to the upside. And here is another one. In this case, notice we have a flat PMO above the signal line. It is drifting a little bit lower, but overall it is flat above the signal line, and that is a sign of pure strength. And certainly that's what we were seeing all the way up until this point where we got the sell signal on the PMO. Back here, we can see that we have rising bottoms on the PMO. It's above the zero line. That is new strength. And we got some good movement out of that particular move. Back here, you can see how the PMO bottomed. It was below the zero line, so we had to be a little careful as to whether this was just diminishing weakness or not. And we got the buy signal, which started to confirm the rising trend there. And the PMO continued to make its way up. So even though we had some um, turbulence back here, the PMO was still rising and told us that we just needed to hold off here. The 200-day EMA was posing great support at that point. And so it told us to wait it out. And certainly we got more upside out of it. And here's where that PMO topped. And you can see that the price had started to move down from that point. There was the confirmation of the decline, and price was moving lower. All right, here is another chart, and we're going to look at a lot of these. So get your coffee out, make sure you're make sure you are ready to pay attention and learn here. All right, so we have pure weakness on this chart. You can see that. I'm going to take another drink of water here. So you can see the pure weakness on this chart where we had the PMO not only flat beneath the zero line over here, you can see price was flattening out, but then we got the PMO sell signal and the PMO continued to move down. And of course, price was still moving down. We got a buy signal here, but it came well below the zero line. We had to be a little bit questioning about whether that was new strength or not. Because it was so far below the zero line, it turned out to not be much in the way of strength. The fact that price was below the 200-day EMA also was a sign that we had pure weakness, that even though we were getting this crossover buy signal, price was beneath the 200-day EMA. So there was still a lot of weakness in price, and we had to be very careful. Now, when we get back here, we got another PMO buy signal, but notice this one's a lot closer to the zero line. And we had a really nice jump here in price that came in after the confirmation of this particular crossover buy signal. And you can see the PMO started to put margin between it and its signal line. So these points where it went above the zero line are new strength. Here's new strength coming in as the PMO is turning up. We got that crossover buy signal above the zero line. That's a sign of pure strength right there as the PMO starts to head up after a crossover buy signal that was above the zero line. And here's another sign of pure strength back here where the PMO had flattened out above the zero line. It was well above the zero line, so that was a good sign. And notice we still got a PMO sell signal in here, but ultimately the PMO stayed flat. It was well above the zero line, so we didn't really need to worry too much about this particular sell signal. And you can see the PMO stayed flat as the rally returned. We got a sell signal back here, a sign of diminishing strength. Um, at that point, I don't know that I would have necessarily gotten out because the PMO was already flat above the zero line and well above the zero line on this PMO crossover sell signal. But certainly after that signal with price continuing to move down, that would have been a sign that maybe you would want to be out and wait for the PMO to make that turn to the upside again. And that's what we got back here with that crossover buy signal, new strength coming in off of that zero line, price moving upward. And you can also use these other indicators. I have them on the chart. I'm not talking that much about them, but look at stochastics back here. Stochastics were above 80 and climbing quickly on this crossover buy signal. So this was a pretty good sign that maybe we were going to get some movement out of this particular signal based on those stochastics. And then one of the other things I like to have on my chart is relative strength. So this first window is the industry group to the SPY. So you can see that the industry group back in this period of time was starting to outperform. We have the stock against the SPY, relative strength against the SPY, and you can see that was already rising against the SPY when we had gotten this buy signal. And you can see that the stock against its industry group, and we do this so that we know whether we have a leader or not within the group. If the stock is outperforming its group, it's gonna outperform the S&P more than likely. And again, here you can see that we were getting rising relative strength against the group, rising relative strength against the SPY. So these were all good signs. Back here, we saw the same thing, a reversal in relative strength. Stochastics above 80. The OBV, you can see right here, is seeing movement. We've got a bottom above a bottom, and over here we have flat bottoms. So that's pretty much a positive divergence. So all of these things gave us hints that this particular buy signal probably was going to work out. So the PMO is great, but boy, when you combine it with these other indicators, it's extremely powerful. Here is new strength coming in right now on this particular one. You can see that the PMO bottomed above its signal line. That's a sign of especially new strength coming in when you get bottoms above the signal line, and this occurred above the zero line. Now, this one's real interesting because the PMO did flatten out, but it's on the zero line, and that's a neutral signal. So you wouldn't want to look at this as pure strength because, yes, the PMO is flat, and yes, it's mostly above the zero line, but it's awfully close to the zero line. So that's more of a neutral sign. And sure enough, price was moving mostly sideways. Here we got the PMO sell signal. Look what was going on with stochastics. Stochastics were already moving down. The RSI, of course, was losing strength. It had dropped beneath net neutral 50. There were a lot of signs that this particular sell signal might be a problem. And certainly it turned out to be a problem. Back here, you can see the PMO flattened beneath the zero line, and that was a sign of pure weakness and a time to not really be looking at this stock for a buy. Here's one with pure strength. You've got the PMO mostly flat above the signal line, and sure enough, here's that steady rising trend. And that's why the PMO flattens out. You've got a steady rising trend. It's not that jagged. It's just, you could draw an interior trend line and it would just go perfectly right up through price. And that's why you have this flat PMO. And let's see, what else can we say about this particular chart? I think we've said enough about it. So now I'm going to talk to you about my PMO scan, and then we're going to get into looking at some possible stock picks for right now. My PMO scan, I wish that I had made this exclusive. It's my best scan out there, and I published it years ago. And so it is open code, if you will, that you can use to apply to your favorite scan system. I do mine on stockcharts.com, like I said. So if you are a Stock Charts member, this is going to be especially helpful. If you want the PMO scan, besides what I'm going to show you here, you can find the article I wrote. Let's see. Let me make a note to show you where the article is. Show article. So you can find it. All right, and that way you can take the scan yourself and input it in stockcharts.com or manipulate it to fit into your scanning program. So the first thing I want is a bull market bias. That means I want those EMAs configured positively. Remember, we looked at that one chart and the EMAs were the exact opposite. The 200-day was up here, the 50 was below it, and the 20 was below that. That's not what I'm looking for in this scan. I'm looking for stocks that are already configured with a bullish bias, meaning they have a golden cross, meaning the 50 is above the 200, and they have a silver cross where the 20 is above the 50. So that's what I'm looking for. First of all, I want a nice market bias on, or not a nice bias on that stock or ETF. Then I'm looking for detecting a PMO reversal. So this particular scan comes up with PMO bottoms, and the PMO bottoms are above the zero line. So it really sets you up to find those stocks that may be showing, that are showing new strength. I look at the first day being the PMO falling, the second and third day it's rising. And that's how I determine whether we've got a nice PMO reversal going on. So here's the actual scan code. The first part is figuring out the universe you're going to scan. And in this case, it's the S&P 500. I want a PMO that has not yet had a crossover. So that means my PMO line has to be, today's PMO line needs to be less than, it should say yesterday's PMO, or needs to be below the signal line. Yes. So it hasn't had a crossover. The PMO line is below the signal line, right? So we haven't had the crossover yet. And I want the PMO to be rising for the last 3 days. So I say today's line is greater than yesterday's. Yesterday's is greater than the one 2 days before that. And 2 days ago's PMO line is greater than 3 days ago. So that gives me the last 3 days of a PMO rising. The positive lineup of the EMAs, which I already talked about. The 20 is above the 50 and the 50 is above the 200. So you could actually take this scan code, copy and paste it into your stock charts scan workbench, and you'll be able to use this particular scan. Like I said, I'll show you where the article is so that you can copy the scan code easily. But if you want to take a screenshot, here it is. I'll take a drink of coffee while you screenshot. Okay. All right, I'm going to talk about what we do here, but first let's go and look at some examples, and hopefully I'm going to be able to share and come back and share. We'll see. I know how to get it back if I need to. All right, so here is the chart of NVIDIA. Notice the PMO is very flat along the zero line. So it's flat, it is somewhat above the zero line, but this is a sign of neutrality. And certainly that's what we've been getting in here, is this neutral sort of setup here with price moving mostly sideways. The PMO did give us that negative crossover though, coming in on the gap down. It's a little late, but ultimately it's confirming that decline that we have. And the PMO is dropping now below the zero line. This is not a good sign for NVIDIA right now. And notice relative strength has really started to peter out. You've got the group is not performing well. You've got the stock not performing well against the S&P. And NVIDIA, as far as semiconductors go, is in a declining trend relative strength wise. So this is also far from being a leader in the semiconductor space. It's actually losing its position as a leader, as you can see, with relative strength starting to peter out here. So what does this tell me? I think that there's a good chance that NVIDIA is going to drop below this 200-day EMA. Certainly a worry. But for the bulls out there, if you want a little bit of good news, if you will, this could end up being a reverse island. See how we have an island of price here? We got the gap down and then an island. What'll happen a lot of times is you'll get these islands and you'll get a reversal from them. So in this case, it would be an upside reversal or a gap up. So that's something that we could see. That's something that we could see coming forth on NVIDIA. So there is that possibility of a gap up move. But given the way the PMO is acting and how it's dropped beneath the zero line, I don't have a lot of confidence in what's going on with NVIDIA. All right, so I ran my scan earlier and I had 21 stocks come up. And what I like to do when I do my scans is on stockcharts.com, I put all of the stocks in a chart list. And in this case, I call it scan dump. So I run scans, I put them in the scan dump chart list because that chart list is going to change after every scan I write. So, or run. So I just use this, I delete or replace this list constantly. It's a great sort of a place to keep stuff while I'm looking at it, but I know that this list will get written over very quickly, so I don't put anything in here that I'm gonna, if I find stuff in here, I'm gonna pull it out of this list and put it somewhere safe. One of the things you can do is candle glance, and this is just critical use. I mean, this is one of the most powerful tools, I think, on stockcharts.com is being able to use the candle glance to look at a bunch of charts on one page. So we do have a lot of charts. So what I have done is the other thing you can do on stock charts is I have my PMO as my indicator, and I can sort. And what I'm doing now is putting all the highest PMOs at the top. So this tells me these are the strong charts. These are the ones that are showing pure strength. This is where I want to be. And you can see here, I put the stock charts technical rank on here. You can read more about the stock charts technical rank on their website, but you can see that it is at the top of the zone here on these couple of charts at the top here. So you know you've got some pure strength going on. This one is a great example of pure strength because you can see that PMO is flattened out above the zero line. And again, that is because this rising trend is steady. And so you're going to find that the PMO will flatten. So we know that it's very strong. Now, the one part about this is that these stocks here at the top probably have overbought RSIs. In this case, yes, the RSI is overbought. But we're still seeing pure strength on this chart. We're seeing a PMO bottom well above the zero line, and it's going in for a crossover buy signal. We have a breakout on the chart. We have stochastics getting above 80. We have relative strength. Look at this. The group, the computer services group, is just outperforming in a big way right now. And this stock KC is outperforming the SPY, and you can see it's also outperforming its industry group. So you know that we're in a strong industry group and we have a strong stock within that group. So this is a pretty nice setup on this particular chart. Let's go back. Here's another one. Reddit is at the top here. And again, okay, so in this case, we don't have an overbought RSI because it's having a bad day. That is a bearish engulfing candlestick, so we may be in for a little bit more decline here, but the rising trend is still very much intact. And the PMO is going up toward a crossover buy signal well above the zero line. Stochastics are above 80. And again, look at this relative strength. The group is really outperforming, and you can see that the stock itself is outperforming the S&P, and it's also outperforming its group. And that tells you you have a leader. So Reddit looking pretty good right now. Amer Sports, interesting. Recreational products. Another very strong winner that should keep on winning. The PMO is flat above the zero line, so we have pure strength. The stochastics are above 80. And you can see rising relative strength against the S&P. The group is not doing that great. It's performing pretty much in line with the S&P right now, but this stock is outperforming the S&P, so that is okay. I don't necessarily need the group to be outperforming. It's good if it is, because it puts the wind at the stock's back, but in this case, it's not been a problem. It's still outperforming. And you can see that it tends to be a leader within this group as it has rising relative strength against the group. So a nice little setup here on AS, Amerisports. So you can see the PMO scan does come up with some pretty good results. And I think that this is one of the ways that you can really improve your trading and find those strong stocks and bring them up to the top by using this PMO sort. So if you're not a Stock Charts member, maybe something to consider if you want to get involved in these scans, which I do find very powerful. But if you don't have stock charts, you have us. And one of the subscriptions that we offer is that scan alert system. And in the scan alert system, basically, I run the Diamond PMO scan, the PMO scan you just saw. I run my other scans as well, and I send you all of those symbols from those scan results. So you can go through and look at those stocks that hit the top. Well, you can basically you can get the stock symbols and then input them into whatever charting platform you use. And so you don't necessarily need to know my Diamond PMO scan, because if you want, I can just give you the results of that scan. I also give you the PMO crossovers. So you get all the results of the PMOs that have crossed above their signal line. And I have a momentum sleeper scan. This one, that scan actually looks at the negative PMOs and starts looking for, it detects when we're getting that new momentum in the stock itself. I use various parameters to help me with that. So this is one way you can get the results without having to go through them like I'm going through. I mean, you can go through them yourself that way and find the results every day in your email box. At the end of the day, you'll have a list of symbols that you can look at that have already been vetted by my scans. So back here to our candle glance, Freesia, this looks like an interesting one. We do have a rising trend that's steady. We have a flat PMO above the signal line, well above the signal line. It's reading at 6.63. That's a very high reading. Typically, you're going to find with the indexes, the range is usually plus 2.5 to minus 2.5. Stocks will vary, and that's why we have to go in and look at what the normal range is. So right now it may be in the overbought side, but it is flat above that signal line or above that zero line. And so that tells you there is pure strength still going on in this move. And we could see even higher prices come in for Freesia, a software company. I would warn, though, that you can see as far as relative strength goes, the software group is starting to lose a lot of relative strength right now. So maybe not the best place to be in the current market environment, because we are losing that relative strength. Just something to keep in mind. But this particular stock, definitely outperforming the S&P, definitely outperforming its group. It's doing quite well. And stochastics are above 80 now, flat PMO, pure strength. This one looks really good, Freesia. Here's another one that's on a straight rising trend, a flat PMO, a scooter at the top of the range. The range for the scooter is 0 to 100%. 97.6 means it's better than 97.6% of the stocks in its universe, the universe being mid caps. So among mid caps, it has one of the highest readings you can get. Let's look at a weekly chart here. So here's the weekly chart. You've got a picture of the weekly PMO. And you can see that scooter is at the top of the range. And that means that it is better than 97.6% of stocks as far as the mid caps go in the intermediate to long term. So this is a pretty good indicator for confirmation as well. This one's on a nice move. It's getting ready to break out to, I imagine, new all-time highs. We can check a monthly chart for that. No, not new all-time highs, but certainly can come up here and challenge those all-time highs the way it's acting right now. And notice that monthly PMO, because we have a PMO for monthly charts. That PMO on the monthly chart is shooting straight upward, building margin between it and its signal line. This one looks pretty strong too, Alaska Airlines. All right, we're getting near the end. So I'm going to let's look at what's going on these charts just in general as we move down the list. This one has a nice basing pattern. So Asana looks pretty good. The PMO is just now turning up above the zero line. You've got Palantir came through today because of this PMO rising and almost above the signal line. Looking pretty good for a breakout on Palantir right now. You can see it is outperforming the S&P and it is outperforming its group. But again, it is in software and software is starting to show some problems here. But based on the PMO, I mean, this looks pretty good for Palantir for a breakout. We'll see. We shall see. We've got United Foods. You've got this very nice move to the upside on a strong rising trend. PMO coming in for that buy signal. Here's a great one that's moved up and is making new highs. PMO getting ready to cross above its signal line, well above the zero line. So good signs there. So you can see really all of these stocks that I have pulled up from this particular scan really do have a lot of the characteristics that you want to see on the PMO. Here's another one, kind of a double bottom, but not quite. Nice base pattern here coming off of the 50-day EMA. DocuSign, kind of a basing pattern that we're getting here. PMO almost on a buy signal, and look at how high the scooter is right now. But as we get down lower, notice that right here, we have a PMO getting ready on the buy signal, but price has been moving kind of sideways. Over here, it's really still in a declining trend. So we do have a positive PMO, but notice the reading is very low. This does look like a pretty interesting base pattern. This looks like a reverse head and shoulders, possibly with a head here, left shoulder, right shoulder. PMO coming up above the zero line right now, so that's showing new strength. This one's still kind of in a declining trend. It looks like it's making its move, but the PMO is, actually these PMOs are negative at this point. Okay. So that is that. Let us go. Let me see if I can get back to my presentation here. Of course not. It's not one of the windows that it's it's not giving me the window to share. Hang on, let me go back in here and find the presentation and get it back up. Go and escape, then come back here and share. Go. All right, so decision point alert and decision point diamonds, I showed you those. Decision point alert, honestly, is the cornerstone report. This report is what will give you the trend and condition of the market. You should start every morning with the decision point alert. I publish it in the evening, and so you'll always have it available to you before the market opens the next day. And you really need to look at that first. You need to know the trend and condition of the market. And it covers not only the market, but we also cover Bitcoin, dollar, gold, yields, bonds, gold miners. There's a lot also included in the decision point alert. So not only do you get the trend and condition of the market, but you also get the trend and condition of some of those major asset classes. Decision point diamonds. Remember, I take my scans and I find the stocks that I think are the strongest from those results and present them to you. Oh, you wanted me to go back to the slide with the scan code. I will do that. But actually, what I'm going to do is show you how to get to the code so that you can easily copy and paste it. So let's do that after this. So here are the price points for our subscriptions. Like I said, the scan alert service will get you all that raw data. But here is the special coupon code that I have for you. You can save 75% off your first 2 months of any of these particular products. To give them a try, see what you think, see if you like them. And we'd love to get you on board. So let me go ahead and show you where you can find my article. All right, so if you go to stockcharts.com and you go to the little magnifying glass, you can type in price, momentum, oscillator. And then what you want to do is you don't want support articles. You actually want chart school articles. And this is where you should be able to find the play. Man, this is a confusing look. Usually it comes right to the top. Let me see if I can find it an easier way here. Actually, no, I know what it is. It's not a chart school article. It is a blog article that I wrote. Let's see here. Price momentum oscillator. We need it to be. Let's see. Actually, you know where you can go? This is much easier. I apologize. I should have had this set up. Go to our blogs and links page, which is this page. And at the very top of our educational list, you'll find my PMO scan. You can click there. This will bring up the blog that I wrote, and you can see that inside of it is the scan code that you can just copy and paste into the scan workbench, or you can use it for whatever scan program you have. So this is where you can find it. So let's go back. So you go to my decision point, you'll see the home page, go to the blogs and links, and then there's my PMO scan right there. I should have shown you this first. That is a much easier way to do it. All right, that concludes my presentation. Again, I would hope that you would give one of our products a try. The coupon code, what was the coupon code? Now I can't get back to my presentation. Oh my goodness. Hold on, I'll give you that coupon code one more time.
I posted it in the chat.
Oh, good. So it is in the chat. All
Yeah.
right. That's good. Whoops. Nope, I don't want that.